The most dangerous man in America asked John Lennon to write him a campaign song. John Lennon tried for weeks, failed completely, and accidentally wrote one of the greatest Beatles songs ever made. And then he got sued for it. The year is 1969. Timothy Leary is a Harvard professor who became the face of the LSD movement, the man behind the slogan "Turn on, tune in, drop out." Richard Nixon himself had called him the most dangerous man in America. Now Leary wanted to run for governor of California against Ronald Reagan, and his campaign slogan was "Come together, join the party." He called John Lennon personally and asked him to write a campaign song around that phrase. Lennon agreed immediately. For weeks, Lennon tried to write something that could actually work for a political campaign. He could not do it. What kept coming out instead was dark, strange, and impossible to dance to at a rally. He eventually sent Leary a demo tape anyway, which got played on underground radio stations. Then Leary's entire campaign collapsed overnight. He had been convicted of marijuana possession and sentenced to 20 total years in prison. The campaign was over, and John Lennon still had this unfinished song sitting in his hands with nowhere to go. He brought it to Abbey Road. Paul McCartney immediately told Lennon it sounded too similar to Chuck Berry's "You Can't Catch Me." Lennon slowed the entire song down from a perky pop song into what Paul later called a swampy bass and drums vibe. The result was the opening track on Abbey Road, recorded on July 21, 1969, across 6 separate sessions. Lennon later admitted in a 1980 Playboy interview that the lyrics were essentially gobbledygook, whatever came into his head that worked rhythmically. He said he tried to write something usable for Leary's campaign, but the song that came out was simply no good for a political rally. You could not run for governor of California on lyrics like this, but you could open one of the greatest albums ever made with them. Timothy Leary heard the finished Beatles version and was immediately annoyed. He sent Lennon a mild protest about being passed over. Lennon's response became one of the most famous one-line replies in rock history. He told Leary he was a tailor, and Leary was a customer who had ordered a suit and never returned. So he sold it to someone else. Paul McCartney's warning about Chuck Berry turned out to be accurate. A music publisher named Morris Levy, who owned the rights to "You Can't Catch Me" and thousands of other early rock songs he had obtained from unrepresented black artists, sued John Lennon directly over the line. Here comes Old Flat Top and the overall feel of the melody. The lawsuit was settled out of court. As part of the settlement, Lennon agreed to record 3 songs owned by Levy on his next solo album. That album became Lennon's 1975 record Rock and Roll, and it included a cover of "You Can't Catch Me" and Chuck Berry's "Sweet Little 16", both owned by the man who sued him. Come Together topped the charts in the United States and reached number 4 in the UK. Rolling Stone magazine ranked it the 202nd greatest song of all time. And here is the detail that makes this song feel like a door closing on an era. Come Together was the very last song that all 4 Beatles, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, worked on together in the same studio at the same time. The band that changed music permanently said goodbye to each other with a song that started as a failed campaign anthem for a man who was sitting in prison when it came out. A Harvard professor in handcuffs. A tailor who sold the suit to someone else. And the last thing 4 of the most important musicians in human history ever made together.